going to be celebrating Memorial Day, and we've got several holidays that are geared around paying our respects and showing our thankfulness to the military. But tomorrow is the one that we celebrate and honor all of those reunions that didn't happen. Veterans Day, we honor those who serve in our military and who have served in our military. We have Armed Service Day when we thank those that are currently serving. The Memorial Day is the one that we're going to celebrate tomorrow. That is for the servicemen and women that gave their lives during battle for service to this country and for you and I. Before I get started with my message, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, I do pray and I thank you so much for the country that we live in. And I thank you for the fact that it was built on your principles, with pleasing you in mind when we were established as a country. Lord, I do pray for forgiveness for how far we've come from that, but I also do want to thank you so much for just the fact that there are those that are willing to put their own comfort and safety aside, to go out and put their lives on the line so that we can continue to live the life that we live, maintain our lifestyles, that we can have the freedoms that we have. And not only that we would have it here, Lord, but that we would take care of the oppressed in all countries of the world, wherever justice and what is right is needed. Lord, we are a country that's willing to go forward and put that effort forward. And we have people in this country that are willing to put their lives on the line for them as well. Lord, I do pray and I thank you for all those that do serve. And it's hard for us to fully comprehend the gravity of what it is that they do for us. But I do pray your blessings upon them. And for those that offered up their sons and daughters to serve that did not get the reunions we just saw in that video, Lord, I just pray that they would be blessed in a special way as well, knowing the gravity of what their sons and daughters gave up for us. Lord, I pray and ask that again you be with me as I deliver your message. May be your message and not mine. And may it fall on the hearts that you've softened. I pray and ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Excuse me, I do get a little choked up when I think about that. And I see those reunions at times, I'm a big sissy. I just about want to cry every time. It's almost like the shoes thing, Zane. Yeah, it will tear you up. But, several years ago, Kristen and I and several of us that are here attended the Concordia Baptist Church in Concordia, Missouri there. One Sunday, one of the members, Mr. Ralph Lang, got up and he addressed us as a congregation, and from his pew, he didn't get up in front of the church. He never would do that, I don't believe. But he got up and he gave us a well-deserved reprimand. He was obviously very upset. I think this was the Sunday following Memorial Day that year. He was upset at the lack of attendance at the Memorial Day ceremonies that are held there in town every year. Ralph was a member of the local color guard, and he served his country, and then he served in the color guard until he could no longer physically do it. In his latter years, it was obvious as he took each step, it was with great effort and pain, but yet he never faltered. He kept his chin up and his eyes straight ahead, at attention as he waited for the orders of his commanding officer. That day in church as he spoke, it was obvious to me he was angry. And he was hurt. And he was really feeling disrespected at the way this holiday was so blatantly dismissed and overlooked. You know, it was offensive to him. The way that the great price that was paid, the one that warranted this holiday, was used as an extra day at the lake, some extra time to sleep in, or in a lot of circumstances, just another day to recover from a heavy weekend of binge drinking and the hangover that would ensue. You know, I got that message loud and clear, and with very few exceptions, I've made it a priority not only to attend, but to bring my family and my boys and impress upon them the gravity of what was done to ensure the lifestyle's freedom and privileges that they enjoy. You know, that ceremony happens not just in Concordia, Missouri. I'm sure they have something probably right here or out at the base or somewhere. And really, if you get the opportunity, you should take a few moments out of your day, a day that you wouldn't have without their sacrifice, and pay your respects, attend, and enjoy and take part in the solemnity of what goes on in those ceremonies. You know, Ralph's convictions that day were pretty clear, and although there are many of us who have not, nor will we ever put on a uniform and put our lives on the line, we do have a duty to carry out our Christianity with the same pride and unwavering loyalty as Ralph did to his country, and so many others before and since have done as well. You know, even when it's hard or causes us extreme pain with every step, it's our duty to do it. No excuses. In today's world, you know, you can stand for anything remotely Christian, and then you're labeled as a hater or intolerant. Maybe you're not promoted for a position at work or accepted by your coworkers. If you're at school, it incites some ridicule and be excluded from the in-crowds. Maybe in your social life you're excluded from club membership because you can't participate in the activities that they seem to sponsor. And it puts you in a position in which you're either called to submit to their will and check your beliefs at the door or be excluded. And so I ask you today are you willing to wear your Christianity on your chest like a badge or on your body like a uniform? Are you willing to put everything on the line so that you can remain true to your convictions and to your God, just as our soldiers do to this country? Like those who served in the military, those who put themselves in harm's way or given their lives, we've taken an oath and surrendered our will to our commander. How serious do you take it? Are you willing to die either physically or socially to obtain his objectives? And maybe a better question is, do we have to compromise our convictions to be effective? Or can we remain successful in our daily lives and maintain our spiritual integrity? You know, as we go into battle with the world, you can be sure that God has not sugarcoated the difficulty of the mission. He tells us that persecution will come. In Matthew 10, verses 16 through 22, he tells us, "Behold, I send you out as sheep into the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Beware of men, for they will deliver you over to courts and flog you in their synagogues. And you will be dragged before governors and kings for my sake, to bear witness before them and the Gentiles. When they deliver you over, do not be anxious how you are to speak, or what you are to say. For what you are to say will be given to you in that hour. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will deliver brother over to death, and the father his child, and the children will rise against parents and have them put to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. But the one who endures to the end will be saved." You know, let's not forget that the penalty for our treason here is death. And in the case of our oath to God, I mean, it's an eternal death. It's not a momentary here now and gone the next. It's forever. You know, he tells us, whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. But you know, it's not all gloom and doom. We've got encouragement. We don't go into battle without training. A little further down in that same chapter of Matthew 10, we read in verse 32 I need to step back. Ephesians 4:11. It says that he gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, and the teachers to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, for building up the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, so that we may no longer be children, tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes. Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. And along with that, he's given us his word. In it we can find the answers to all life's struggles. Nothing new in there that hasn't happened before that we don't have an answer for. But you know, just like in most cases of battle, when you watch them on the movies, you see the cinema versions of these things. The commander always tells them it's going to be a difficult mission, and you know, not many of you may make it out of here. And then the last thing he does right before they leave is he gives them a rally cry. I mean, he tells them. He gives them some hope and some faith that their difficult mission is attainable. And he gives them some reasons why they're going to be successful. And I'm just going to read these off in shotgun fashion here, but there's plenty more that I left out. But there are a ton here. Psalm 27:1, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Psalm 31:24, be strong and take heart, all you who hope in the Lord. Psalm 56, verses 3 through 4 says, when I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Psalm 112, verses 6 through 7 says, surely the righteous will never be shaken. They will be remembered forever. They will have no fear of bad news. Their hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord. Isaiah 41, verses 10 through 13 reads like this, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. All who rage against you will surely be ashamed and disgraced. Those who oppose you will be as nothing and perish. Though you search for your enemies, you will not find them. Those who wage war against you will be as nothing at all. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 13. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong. 2 Timothy 1:7. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. And then probably one of the most famous ones that we see, and I think it's on the leading part of it's on your bulletin, is Joshua 1:9, which is actually a repeat from Deuteronomy. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. In April of 1942, a young man who worked as a ship joiner at a shipyard in Newport News, Virginia, was drafted into the United States Army. Due to his work in the Navy shipyard, he qualified for deferment. But having felt the horror of the news of the bombing of Pearl Harbor and having heard of the suicides of 3 young men in his hometown who were deemed physically unfit to serve, he felt he needed to take an active part in the war effort on the battlefield. There was just one problem. Because of his deeply held religious convictions, he had vowed not to kill or even pick up a weapon. This proved to be quite a hurdle to overcome, since part of his basic training was firearm training. Despite his being persecuted both mentally and physically for his faith, and after many attempts by his superior officers to get him to quit, this young man refused to take firearms training or to give up on his conviction to serve on the battlefield, asking that he be trained as a medic. His fellow soldiers would throw boots at him as he read his Bible, which he carried with him everywhere he went. He'd read his Bible each night and pray, and they would throw their boots at him. He would be denied leave by his superior officers in an attempt to get him to relent on his convictions, and he was despised by his fellow soldiers as a coward and considered a liability on the battlefield by all with which he was to serve. At one point, his commanding officer actually even tried to have him discharged on a Section 8, claiming that he must be mentally unfit due to his unwillingness to pick up a gun and compromise his religious beliefs. He was also threatened with court-martial for disobeying a direct order to pick up a rifle. But after months of harassment and hardships and abuse, he was eventually granted his request to train as a field medic and did tours of duty in the Pacific Theater in Guam, Leyte in the Philippines, and finally in the invasion of Okinawa, Japan. It was during his tour in Okinawa that his company was given orders to ascend the Maida Escarpment, a 350-foot bluff that runs across most of the island of Okinawa, and which was heavily fortified with Japanese troops. This soldier was one of several men who volunteered to go up and hang the cargo nets that it would take for them to climb the escarpment in the face of heavy artillery fire by the Japanese. There's actually a picture of him if you go back and take a look, and he's standing up there on the top of that thing when everybody else would have been laying on their bellies. On their first assault, his company was met with heavy gunfire and mortar fire, and they caused heavy casualties. And it resulted in the order to retreat. But knowing there were many wounded, even though he was unarmed and in the face of advancing Japanese forces, the medic refused to retreat. For 5 hours, he stayed on the ridge, administering aid and carrying the wounded to the edge of the escarpment and lowering them down one by one using a rope sling. And after each rescue, he would pray for God to give him strength. And I warn you, some of this is a little graphic, so if the kids are here, you might visually not learn it.
Yeah, we got it. We got it. Please, Lord, help me get one more. Help me get one more. One more. Help me get one more. One more. Help me get one more. One more.
Probably quite a few of you that will recognize that as from the movie Hacksaw Ridge. Desmond Doss would go on to single-handedly that day rescue about 75 men, earning him the Medal of Honor and the respect of his fellow soldiers. Same ones that had ridiculed him and thrown their boots at him were the ones he saved. The ones that retreated and were down the mountain or down the escarpment were also they admired him for his bravery and his courage. On May 5th, 1945, the 307th Infantry Regiment of the 77th Infantry Division was ordered to again take the escarpment. At this point, Doss was the only medic left. Being a Saturday, he was normally excused from his duties so he could observe the Sabbath. None of his comrades wanted to make the attack without him. So after the request of his CO, Doss agreed to go, even though it was a Saturday. It was his Sabbath, so long as they would allow him to read his Bible and complete his devotion and prayer before they went. His request was granted, and the assault was actually put on hold and approved by not only his commanding officer, but well up the chain of command. And they weren't allowed to go up until he had finished his devotion and his worship to God. The U.S. went on to take, before they did ascend the escarpment again, he prayed for them before they left. And on that day, they were able to take that hill that had been called Hacksaw Ridge. The fighting and the machine gun fire was so fierce from the enemy that many soldiers were literally cut into two, which is why they got this name. Soldiers talked about stacking the American casualties as high as they could reach and walking through areas of mud that was created not because of rain, but because it was blood-soaked. That's how bloody that battle was. At one point during the skirmish, Doss was in a foxhole, and a hand grenade came flying in. He could do nothing about it at that point except step on it, which is what he did. He turned his back and put his foot on it. The explosion sent him reeling, and he woke up sometime later injured badly injured in his legs and seeing stars. It took him a while to come to his senses. When he finally did, he realized how badly he was hurt. And rather than call on aid from another soldier, he treated his own wounds and waited 5 hours for daylight to arrive, for it would be safer for somebody to come and help him. When help did arrive, he was loaded on the litter, which is basically a stretcher, and he was carried through a massive hail of tank and mortar fire by his comrades. Well, along the way, he saw another badly wounded soldier, and he rolled himself off the litter, crawled to the soldier, and insisted that the soldiers take the other wounded soldier first. While he was waiting on their return, he was shot in the arm by a sniper, shattering his left arm. But using the stock from a broken rifle that he found laying nearby, he fashioned a splint, crawled 300 yards to the aid station. He was taken to the hospital ship Mercy to be treated for his injuries, and while there, he noticed that he was missing his Bible. It was a Bible that his wife had given him on the day that they were married, and he carried it with him everywhere. He was more upset about missing his Bible than he was his own injuries. And his first concern was that somebody had to get word back to his buddies that his Bible was missing. And so they did. They got word back to him. Those soldiers went out in the midst of heavy gunfire again and scoured the ground where he had been until they found his Bible, at the risk of their own lives, in order to bring it back to him. Now, this is the same guy that hated him in the basic training. Doss had so many other acts of heroism. I did a lot of research on him. The Hacksaw Ridge movie, which, despite some coarse language, is something I would encourage you to see, because it is very graphic, and I think it barely paints a picture of what those men went through, but give you some kind of perspective as to the sacrifices that are made. But, there were so many other things that he did that they're too numerous to mention. But the one thing that he never did through all of it was pick up a weapon. He never did compromise his beliefs or hide his first loyalty to God first. You see, he didn't have to change in order to be the best he could be. In fact, it was his loyalty to God that was the inspiration for his strength, his bravery, and his self-sacrifice. He gives credit to God for reminding him of the special knot he accidentally stumbled upon during his basic training. That was the knot that he used to lower those soldiers down from the escarpment. He actually didn't have enough rope to do it the right way. But because he had accidentally stumbled upon that knot, he was able to conserve his rope and lower those men down to their safety down training. He attributed that to God. And he attributed his self-sacrificing attitude to trying to be more like Christ, and that Christ was willing to give up his life for his brothers, and so was he. You know, I look back at Isaiah 41, 10 through 13, that I read just a little bit ago. And I'll read it again. And I want you to put it in light of Desmond Doss's attitude and his convictions. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. All who rage against you will surely be ashamed and disgraced. Those who oppose you will be as nothing and perish. Though you search for your enemies, you will find them. Those who wage war against you will be as nothing at all. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. You know, it's most of us, the situations we're in, pretty comparatively. We're never going to have to choose between our lives and our convictions. Although there are plenty across the world that do today. But today, as we remember those who gave their lives in service to others, it would be remiss to leave out Christ, who so loved each and every one of us that he laid down his own life, that ours might be saved. So how then can we deny our relationship with him over matters as trivial as promotions, notoriety, and popularity? Our undying devotion is the only fitting tribute to someone so brave and to his Father who was willing to give him up for our sake. You know, as great as Dawson's accomplishments were and his sacrifices were, they pale in comparison to his idol, if you will, his mentor, and that is Christ. You know, when we go out tomorrow, I hope you will go out and take part, or at least observe the ceremonies out there for Memorial Day, for the soldiers that have given the ultimate sacrifice for us. And as you do, keep in mind that that Christ was willing to do the same thing for us. Let's pray. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, I do pray and I thank you so much again for this nation, that we are the greatest nation in the world, and only because of you and your providence. Lord, I do thank you so much again for those that are willing to put their lives on the line for us. Lord, I pray that you give us a great awakening in this country, that we would begin to stand up like Corporal Doss, and regardless of our circumstances or the price that we're told we will pay for it, that we will be unwavering in our conviction to our love for you. And we will be unashamed that we serve you and that we believe in you and that you come first above all else in our lives. And Lord, that we'll be willing to put up with whatever it is that we're denied because of our faith for you. Lord, I pray and ask that you would give us strength to be a shining light in our communities as we go out. Let us be the ones that maybe start out being laughed at and ridiculed, but in the end become revered and respected for the way that we treat our relationship with you and the others around us. Lord, I pray and ask that, again, that you would protect those that are out serving us in the military and be with their families that they leave behind, and the sacrifices they make for us as well. And Lord, I pray and ask that you would give us strength to be bold and courageous and to remember that you are with us always. I pray and ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's stand and let's sing our hymn of invitation this morning. It's hymn number 513, the nail star again.